going against type. Maybe you're a rogue who is not orphaned.
Yeah, but oh my god, imagine. I had one parent. Does that count for original?
Well, I think you started off with... Did you start off with 2?
I started off with, I think they're both dead, and then it was like, actually, one's alive.
You had like the anti-rogue glow
Yeah,
up.
yeah. I actually just did it backwards.
Ended up with more parents than
I
you needed.
I gained parents along the way. At the end of the day, it's about the parents you gain along the way.
Welcome to Plot Girls, the D&D discussion show where storytelling is first in the initiative order and stat blocks come second. I'm Mitch.
And I'm Minty. And today we're going to be kicking off by talking about character creation, but put down the dice.
Put them down.
Don't want to see them, because we're going to be focused on storytelling. We're going to be covering unconventional starting points for creating your characters, things you might not have considered. And this covers player characters and NPCs as well. And then we're going to be talking about how to use every possible mechanic to tell your character's story. What does that mean? Don't worry, we'll get into it. And then we're going to be covering some mistakes. We all make them.
I make them. I've made them all.
We've made them all between us.
That's why we're here.
We've got a few, so you don't have to. We're going to be covering some mistakes that people commonly make when making their characters that are limiting their character's potential. Right at the end of the show, we're going to be using the dice to ask each other some questions that we've pre-prepared, some quick-fire questions. But before that, over to Mitch to talk about her lovely concoction for this evening.
Yes, we have our feature, and that is a cocktail called the Midnight Tears. Some of you may know that as a poison within the D&D universe. I have made it here. Cheers, by the way.
Cheers. It is so good. We are going to put this on our socials, don't fear. We're going to put it in our highlights so you can find the recipe, but do you want to give a quick rundown of what's in it?
I absolutely do. We don't gatekeep this, and also I'm not selling anything. You can make this at home. It is cherry and vanilla gin with blue curacao and then pomegranate juice. I put a little bit of edible glitter in there for the magic to bring some vibes, and I just think that it elevates any table, really. It's surely elevated ours, so.
For sure. It's taking me back to game nights, which is interesting because that's where this all started.
Absolutely. I can smell Waterdeep.
You can smell Waterdeep. I feel like Waterdeep smells worse than your lovely flavoured gin.
Oh, yeah. When I say that, I mean it's giving a London vibe. So
yeah,
Waterdeep to me is walking through and smelling that sewer.
Yeah, just the Thames, the wretched Thames.
Absolutely.
Amazing. I am so excited to talk about character creation with you because it is something that is very close to our hearts.
Yeah.
And also something that we've done very recently.
Yeah, we have. We've been playing in a new campaign, so character creation is fresh on the top of our domes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really interesting to me because character creation is where everybody starts. It doesn't matter how many games you've played, if you've never played before, if you're a DM, if you are a player, it doesn't matter. You all come back to character creation in the beginning.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people get enjoyment out of character creation itself. I know a few people very close to me who have just a plethora of characters waiting in the wings to be used, whether that's retiring an old one, having them die, hoping they die so that they can bring something else in. But it's always nice to try and create a new build.
It is. Which brings me to my first question for you. Our first sort of talking point is, what is your starting point? I feel like every person I've asked this has something very different in terms of where their brain goes to first when they go, right, I'm creating a new character. And this isn't just for player characters, this is for NPCs as well. Like, what do you find inspires you?
Oh, that's such a good question. And I think it's such a divisive one, like you say, because
100%.
Every person has a different rhyme or reason for creating a character or way of doing so. I think that there's two aspects to it. So I think that you can either create something methodically, you go into it and think, I want to play a martial character, I'm going to build a paladin.
Yeah.
And from there you can kind of, not necessarily min-max, but you can kind of create it from the stats upwards.
Yeah.
I am a romantic. I like to create a character through an emotional connection. I like to build my character maybe with some inspiration from media, some inspiration from something I'm watching or something I'm listening to, or an idea I had. But then again, sometimes I'm just like, I haven't played a rogue before. Maybe I'll play a rogue this time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's campaign specific. How about you?
That is a really good point on, I think, playing something that you haven't played before. That's where my brain goes to first, I think, is, what's a class I maybe haven't explored, or what have I recently experienced and what was I missing from that? Going That's so funny. I was about to say I went from rogue to ranger, which is like the least difference you can think of. But even in that, I was like,
you did go from tiefling to half elf.
I went from tiefling to half elf. Big step for me.
That's a big step because she chronically and only plays tieflings.
I have
Tieflings Anonymous over here.
Tieflings Anonymous. Tieflings were a formative experience for me because I feel like before I played D&D, I was like, I guess there's elves and gnomes and, I get it. It's Lord of the Rings. I get it. And then I opened the player's handbook and I saw the tiefling in the player's handbook. And I hope when I say that, everybody has the same image as well of this amazing...
The purple tiefling?
The purple tiefling. And she's got a massive tail. That sounds so weird. Now saying that.
The break between
Cut that.
massive tail.
Massive tail. She's got a lot going for her. And she has those like classic like part of the forehead horns. Oh, I love her so much. I love tieflings. What was I saying? I went from rogue to ranger, but I considered instead of going, okay, what do I mechanically not want to do? I went, what do I want to not do this time in terms of personality and backstory? And I think central to my rogue was this, very quiet approach, very considered, didn't take a lot of chances, which ultimately, led to moments where I don't think I had a lot of fun as a player. It was very immersive, but I don't think I was always like jumping at the chance to get into scenarios that would have been really fun. So when I started, this character, I just thought, how am I going to have fun with this? What's the most fun I can have with this?
And that kind of changes every campaign you have
Absolutely.
as well. Like, I know that I've gone for an angsty character, regretted it. My next character was really outgoing.
Regretted
like
it.
Fairy, yeah. Regretted it, thought I'd be a bit more mysterious. Regretted it again. And I just think that changes and evolves
Yeah,
when
it's just a cycle.
Yeah, especially when you have different players at the table and you think, my style doesn't really gel anymore, or this character feels out of place in the setting. That's going to change as well. But yeah, I think there's different types of characters that you can put in a setting as well. I know that some people like to include an alter ego or like a self-insert.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is really true. We had an interesting conversation once that I'd love for you to expand on for the people, where you mentioned that you feel like everybody's first character is the closest to them in terms of alter ego, and I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I think it's so overwhelming when you start playing D&D for the first time. There's so many rules. You don't know where to start. You don't know what your limitations are.
Yeah.
So when you create a character, it's sometimes easiest to go slightly like yourself, but the you that has a bit more power.
Yeah,
and
that's fun.
Yeah, and I think that's a really nice way of exploring D&D because you get to dip your toes in. You don't have to think too much about what would my character do because you're acting on your own instinct. It's not
what would I do?
Yeah, it's not choking you up at the table. It's not limiting your role play opportunities.
Such a good point.
Yeah, because I know that a lot of people can get lost when they're thinking about, oh, what would my character do in this situation?
Yeah.
But if you've got a self-insert, if it's your alter ego, then it's not always so tough. But yeah, I mean, and we'll talk about this more and the mistakes I've made as well, because she is one of them. But my first character was me, but more bratty, more more
dialed up,
angsty.
She was giving brat summer. She was
way before her time as well. She was the original brat, and it was fun-ish, but also probably not always so fun for everyone at the table. That my character was.
That's fair.
I don't want to say that I was derailing or anything like that, but she was pretty trigger happy, and she was a sorcerer.
We love a trigger happy sorcerer.
And Minty knows that I'm a big sorcerer girl. That's where I sit. That's where I live, and fireball is my bread and butter. So the fireball was getting
it was
thrown left, right, and center.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's so interesting though that you like you say it was you, but kind of dialed up in a certain way. I think for a lot of players that's a really good starting point, especially if they don't feel comfortable, like you say, and everything's so overwhelming. But I also think another way to go about that is consciously playing a character that is, where you think you're deficient has that. And if it's a case of, I'm really nervous going into this game, I think playing a really confident character and just really committing to that personality could eventually just imbue you with that confidence as well. Or, I've not personally done it because I love smart characters, what can I say? They're self-inserts. But people playing characters with low intelligence because they don't know what they're doing in the game, very smart. Yeah. I think the only thing to consider is this going to hold you back later?
Yeah.
But if you're just playing your first ever one shot, that's such a good idea. And then I think, you can faff around with it later if you find that it's restricting. but maybe not playing the alter ego and playing a different person can actually help people to get into the game.
I agree. And on the same note, sort of, being a more experienced role player, you might even be more inclined to create a character who's more happy to sit back and let the other new players who might be creating those charisma, what do you say, like charisma heavy builds in order to make up for the charisma that they don't feel in game, to sit back and sort of foster that by like having more quiet character.
That's a really good point, actually, because I suppose what you're tapping into there is also during the character creation process already having a consideration of who am I sat with, which it's hard to do, especially if you're going into a scenario with completely new players. But if you do know the people at your table, or you at least know, this person's played a bit, this person's played loads, you can start to assess, like, how can I best help this table to get to a point where everybody's comfortable, to get to a point where we're all role playing. Because that first session, those first impressions are so important. And if you come out the gate with all of your experience, like, rah, I'm the face, it could make those quieter players quieter, I think.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And that's where I think communication, it's so boring, but communication is key. Communicate with your DM, communicate with your party, because you don't know what position might be left in the party that would be perfect for you to fill unless you actually talk to the other players, especially if they're newer, or chat with your DM or GM if they think that you might be better suited to a certain role, personality-wise, then fill it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a team game, and I think the character creation process can be quite solitary. And obviously, if you really know your table and you know your friends and you've been playing together for a while, fine. I think it's fine for you to just rock up and be like, here's what I've got. But for a sustainable long-term game, that communication from the beginning is so important. I think I agree. I think for me as well, I've found that I tend to go away and just go, okay, I'm going to make my character now, when really even those early conversations of, okay, so we've got a ranger, we've got a rogue, we have a monk, oh my god, we've not got a healer. Like, if you're really stuck, asking your party, like, is there something we're missing here? Or asking your DM, is there something we're missing here? Could at least just give you that starting point. There's so many options to make the character yours from there. But it might even help players to feel like they've got more of a purpose going into the game. If they're like, I'm the healer, I am meant to be here. And they just already know that their role is important.
I think those archetypes can be really helpful as well.
Yeah.
Like going into it and knowing, okay, I am going to be the healer. I'm going to be the main damage output. I'm going to be the magic user. Yeah. Which is usually the same thing, the damage output.
She loves
in my opinion. And so I think, whether you're leaning into those archetypes and creating a character at the beginning and you're thinking, well, someone like Superman is completely the vibe that I want to go with, and creating this paladin. Here I am talking about paladins again, like I'm selling them. Or maybe you want to be someone a bit more like the Scarlet Witch and leaning into sorcerer. Or, I think that's really clever. Going against type. Maybe you're a rogue who is not orphaned.
Yeah. Oh my god. Imagine. I had one parent. Does that count for original?
Well, I think you started off with. Did you start off with 2?
I started off with, I think they're both dead, and then it was like, actually, one's alive.
You had like the anti-rogue.
Yeah. I actually just did it backwards.
Ended up with more parents than you needed.
I gained parents along the way. At the end of the day, it's about the parents you gain along the way. I think that's a really good point, because so many TV characters, film characters that you can take inspiration from. You can put any character into a D&D setting. You can take any character you love, and there will be a class that is at least adjacent enough that you can go, yeah, this feels a little bit more comfortable. And the way we were talking about, playing an alter ego to feel more comfortable, maybe playing a character you're so familiar with because you've watched them for years, maybe starting there can really help people as well to get in. And I think this is a big point that we talk to each other about a lot. But you find the depth later on. So if you want to play Superman on game 1, play Superman. And somewhere down the line, he will become your character, and you'll find some nuance, or you'll discover something about them you didn't think of before. But like game 1, it's not that deep.
You'll create Xena, warrior princess, and then you'll turn up at the table. The accent is different.
Yeah. You
fail all of the roles that you thought you were going to succeed on.
Absolutely.
You can't imagine what's going to happen as soon as you get to the table. And you're going to sit there as well. And I've had this happen to me a lot. You bring your backstory and you think, I'm sorted. this is really cool.
Yes, it's
And then-
so interesting.
Yeah, and then everyone has a way better backstory, a way cooler character, and you're like, well, I need to go back to the drawing board.
But no, I agree with you. It's so easy to start immediately comparing and being like, did I over-prepare? Did I under-prepare?
Absolutely.
But I do think that session 1 is a level playing ground. And also, on that point about being too in-depth as well. Sorry, who is going to ask you where you were born or what your backstory is on day 1? And if they do...
Are you going to really know the answer to that?
Don't...
What your mother's elvish name is?
If you do, impressive. Like, good for you. We all love homework, but like, it shouldn't come up so early. Focus on what's happening in the moment there and let the backstory come out naturally. I think there's so much pressure. And I found it doing this character as well, this new character that we've started playing this week. After playing for 2 years, you have this really amazing rounded person, that you've been in the body of for so long, and you're like, wow, there's so many layers and I know so much about them. And then you go back to the drawing board and you're like, God, this bitch is boring. Like, this new character has nothing about them. She shoots arrows, I guess. What is she, Legolas? Like, I struggled so much with this ranger because I was like, God, she's boring. And then I thought about my backstory for this rogue I'd played for 2 years when I started. And I was like, wow, that was boring too.
It was bare bones, yeah.
Bare bones.
But I think that is leading on to another point of ours, is that you should be making really threadbare backstories.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is one of the top mistakes, I think. Even I'm not saying it now as a mistake I see people make. I've literally just been making it.
I think I've made it,
100 times.
Plenty of times, yeah.
Especially if you consider yourself a storyteller. And I think you and I love story.
That's why we're called the Plot Girls.
That is why we're called the Plot Girls. And we do writing and we put so much time and consideration into it. I think you almost set yourself up for this standard of, I need to come to the table with something very fleshed out here. No, it's not going to come up in session 1, but I need it for my role play and I need it for my immersion and things like that. And I just think that, like you said, your character will always surprise you. So setting yourself up with this really stringent, here's all the NPCs, here's exactly what happened, is only going to stop you from developing later on, I think.
Absolutely. And also, from a DM's perspective as well, having someone hand into me a more threadbare backstory is so much more helpful than having to include something extremely complicated, extremely irrelevant to the plot that I've come up with. It's a lot of work for me, and it's going to be maybe a bit narratively disappointing for the player as well when they get to the table and their story beats aren't coming up, just because it didn't really align with the campaign brief that I gave, or what exactly my themes are for the campaign. So I think it is really important to create those backstories with the knowledge in mind that your DM is going to read through them, try to attribute it or immerse it into the world itself. If it's really complicated, it's probably just not going to fit.
Hard. And also, that is your first moment of collaborative storytelling, is when your DM gets hold of that backstory. And if you've given them no way to collaborate with you, it's so hard for them to be immersed in it. I think very often, I'm gonna say this hopefully many times, we forget how important and how hard a DM's job is. And I think we just are like, they just show up and they just have all of these ideas, because DMs are so talented. You're a DM. You're so talented. And I'm not. What can I say?
You will be.
I will be one day, hopefully. And I think it's sort of almost a given that they will just like conjure up these amazing inserts and they'll bring that backstory in really easily. But you have to remember that no matter how invested you are as a player, you're having such a carefree time in comparison to your DM. And I think it's on every player to ensure that their DM is as immersed. And so
Absolutely. We're in it to have fun as well.
Exactly. And it's also more likely this is something that we have experienced and something we want to talk about more, hopefully down the line, about, the shelf life of games. It's more likely that your DM will get burnt out than you. 100 times over your DM.
You're turning up to the table, you've got your dice and you've read through your backstory, maybe. You've maybe read through your abilities, which is not to take away from how much prep some players do, because I'm sure they do. But your DM has had to write down every NPC. They've created the encounter tables. They've got your combat ready for the night. They've prepared whatever plot points they're looking to weave in there. Maybe they've even gone through each player's backstories or abilities to try and see how a combat might benefit or challenge a party. They've also been considering challenge rating. If you're playing with XP, maybe they've been calculating that as well.
Yeah.
If it's milestone, maybe they've been trying to work this into the plot. They are doing homework before they even turn up at the table.
Literally, their brains are switched on constantly. And if I'm thinking about my one character all the time when I'm not playing a game, I'm like, oh, I wonder what would happen in this scenario. I can't honestly imagine what a DM is thinking about while they're at work or like walking the dog. So
we're just doing voices.
Just literally practicing a goblin accent in front of the mirror, I hope. But I think my point is that backstory is your first opportunity to get your DM invested in this game. I'm sure they're coming to the table with a lot of enthusiasm, hopefully, because they're probably the one who suggested running it and blah, 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 blah. Maybe it's their homebrew world. Fantastic. But your backstory and what they've put into it and what they're excited to do for you and do for your story could be what is keeping them in it 6 months later, and could be what gives them that flicker of inspiration and that next plot point when they're really stuck.
Yeah.
And I think it's not for you to worry about really after a certain point, but just give them some wiggle room, give them some space. Like, you don't need to know everything. And also, like, I've seen memes about this. When you're really unsure, amnesia. Give them an amnesia backstory. Have you ever had an amnesia backstory?
I actually haven't. I played a character in Frostmaiden that had some memory issues, but it wasn't like complete amnesia.
Oh.
Have you?
No, I haven't, but I have always left ambiguity, at least. With the, parents, for example, it could have been so easy to be like, yeah, they died. And instead it was like, don't know what happened to them. And that came up in ways that I did not expect. I had one, apparently. But like, that was so rewarding and that was so simple. All it took was for me to be like, my character is not sure. Done. And all of a sudden my DMs had so much to work with. So I think you don't have to think about it too much. Just leave some gaps.
Amnesia helps at the table as well when people start asking about your the city that you were born in. And also, you can just lie.
You can lie, yeah.
You can lie. If your first meet and greet is at a tavern, you don't owe these people the truth, especially if you're playing some sort of dodgy rogue. You get to the table, someone says like, hey mate, what are you here for? These are not the voices I do at the table.
Why are you on this job?
Why are you here?
I've never heard you do that voice in my life.
I know.
Your next character, please.
Oh God, it's a given goblin. But, you don't need to tell them the truth. And maybe you don't even know. If you come to the table and you've got your bare bones backstory, you've got basically the sparseness of a character sheet without any thought, make it up or just say, give them a lie and then maybe tell them the truth later. Be like, actually, I didn't know you. And where I'm from is a sore spot for me, and I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you've turned your flaw, aka your bad memory in that moment, into an interesting moment for your character where they've decided to keep something from someone and later unveil it. Like,
mystery is sexy.
Yeah, mystery is very sexy. We talked a lot on one mistake, but it's an important one. I think that one's really important. Just don't deep your backstory that much, essentially. And also that's for me to remember. I'll be watching this episode back. In terms of other mistakes, I'm just going to pull up my lovely cue card that I had no part in printing off or creating. In terms of other mistakes that I know we want to chat about, there's also, I suppose we lightly touched on making an antagonistic PC, but just to go back on that, I think that's an interesting one in terms of the way in which some people approach this as a game.
Yeah.
That whole idea of
completely,
it's a game. So I know I said earlier, like when I was making this new character, I was like, how can I have fun with this? Can't lie to you. My first thought was not, I'm going to start throwing punches and I'm going to start stealing things and I'm going to piss off every NPC I see. Like that was not my first thought. But for a lot of people, it is.
I think you have to ask yourself, am I a protagonist or am I antagonizing the table?
Yeah.
Because I like to bring new groups into the fold, and usually 1 out of 5, sometimes 2, create these characters with well-meaning intentions.
Yeah.
But the characters are grating on everyone in the party. They're making these decisions that go against the greater decision making of the party. They're putting people in danger, or they're putting other people at odds with themselves. And sure, inter-party tension can be interesting and create really nice roleplay opportunities. But if you're literally exhausted playing this character, if you see them sighing around the table and they're exhausted playing with you, you have to consider, have I created a character that's just antagonizing people? Because the amount of people that I've had come to me and say, I want to show you this character. This is the character I want to go with. And I look at it and I think, this character's evil. this character,
True evil.
I have, yeah. Actually, I won't put some of the things that I've had out there.
We're all about confidentiality here.
Yeah, lest I make anyone feel bad. But I've had some things come up in backstories, and I thought that is so inappropriate.
Yeah.
Like, it's inappropriate to talk about, and then in a game setting is even worse. So
yeah. And it, like you say, it begs the question: why are you doing this? And are you just intentionally looking to cause a problem, looking to cause carnage because you think it's funny and you think it's fun? But that's inconsiderate. You know, like this isn't even about D&D anymore. This is human behavior, be a normal human being. And I think something that I'm very passionate about is that sustainability of a game. D&D has the beautiful potential to be something that you could be doing for months, years. You know, like, please don't start off on a bad foot. And if you are only here for a one shot, don't commit to the campaign. If you want the carnage, then that's your opportunity to turn around to the DM and be like, look, I'm not looking for anything serious. Talking to a DM is genuinely like,
it's like dating.
Genuinely is starting a relationship. It's like, is this a one-time thing?
Casual.
Yeah, I'm looking for something casual. I'm actually just looking for a one-night one-shot. I think if you're looking for that carnage, or you're missing it in your game and you're starting to feel that like chaos gremlin come out of you, time for a battle royale. Get it out your system, and then get back to the campaign when it suits you. You know, I do completely understand that people sometimes get tired of campaigns, or that you can go many sessions without having said a lot, and that's when you might start throwing the fireballs around because you're like, well, I'm bored. But
acting out against
literally, you could obviously really upset people. So maybe that's the time to go, hey, should we have a one shot that is like a imaginary world where we all fight each other, you know, or should we do a one shot that's like a heist and bring in some new silly characters? You know, there are ways to get that kind of that feeling out.
Especially if your character doesn't really fit the vibe. I think at that point you have to question whether or not it's an opportunity for you to bring someone else in that fits the vibe better.
Yeah, because there is always coincidental deaths, or
hey, DMs can make it happen.
They can make it happen.
They don't want to, or they shouldn't want to, but they can orchestrate it.
On request, DMs are hitmen. So,
yeah.
Well, Jesus, what were you thinking about there?
Nothing. I've never done that before.
No, you've never headshotted someone, but that's another point actually. You know, creating characters that immediately don't fit the vibe. I think if you're not vibing the setting and the world or the homebrew or whichever book you've chosen, please say it at the beginning. Don't create a swashbuckler in a mainland campaign and then complain for like 2 years because you're like, I can't be a pirate.
I've created a draconic sorcerer and it was a seafaring campaign. I don't know what I was thinking. But also that was quite fun for me because it was a difficulty in having her. And I like parameters. Parameters are sexy.
Yeah, that's
I
fine.
like being challenged. But at what point does the challenge become just too much? If you've got a character that clearly doesn't match the setting, you're going to be disappointed when your draconic sorcerer doesn't have an opportunity to fight with her fireballs because everything's got fire resistance.
That is such a good point. But also it harms your ability to connect with the other players, because if you feel like your character doesn't fit in the world and isn't someone who could have grown up next to one of these other characters, you're just not going to mesh, like immediately. Or you're going to continue this vibe of we're from different countries and I'm a different race, and I just feel like it could immediately impinge on your ability to have those like interesting conversations in the beginning. Not saying you all need to be from the same culture or all need to be the same race, but if you truly do not fit, you'll spend half of your time trying to explain that and not all of your time being in the moment.
I completely agree. And I think in the campaign that you and I started in together, I came in originally with one character.
Yeah.
I had an idea of what I wanted to play, and I was very rigid about how I was going to play that character.
Yeah.
She didn't really... She fit the vibe a little. She would have long term. Anyway, I pulled from the deck. I always get caught up on that word.
Deck.
People tell me I'm not saying that word. Of many things. And she vanished, and I got to bring in a new character. And it was a blessing upon blessings, because that next character of mine, chef's kiss. She was so wonderful. I felt suddenly immersed into the plot because my character was now relevant to the storyline in ways that my other character wasn't.
Yeah.
And it makes it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier for the DM as well, because suddenly he's saying, or she's saying, or they're saying, we're inclusive here.
Very.
Now this political faction applies to you, or this underground league that now relates to your backstory as well. So
Yeah, just make their life easier. It makes your life easier. It means that they'll give you more rewarding moments. And it's not to say that DMs won't work really hard to make your backstory work, because I think, DM should also be open to challenge.
Yeah.
In the sense of, I'm not sure how I'm going to fit this in, but I'll try. I don't think you should make their life easy, but they've chosen a very self-detrimental game. But I think, yeah, I completely agree with you. That's also an interesting point about, we're saying go in with threadbare backstories. Go in and be prepared to change. Be prepared to lose that character. You don't know what's going to happen. So if you go in with like, I've written 24 pages of backstory, and then you pull from the deck of many things, maybe don't do that. If you've if you've written 24 pages of backstory, do not pull from the deck of many things. But you need to be ready to let them go and see the potential in a new character.
Yeah, being prepared for death is something that we'll probably touch on a lot later, but
yeah,
you've got to make sure that this backstory that you've got, if there's no conclusion, are you narratively satisfied with how they've gone out? Because sometimes they're just stuffed out, and that is the nature of life. Sometimes they're killed by a dragon, other times they fall off a cliff, and it's really not that deep.
It's really not that deep. And you need to be able to go back to character creation and enjoy it each time, I think. See the beauty in character creation each time, even if the way that you got there wasn't how you were expecting to, like your character vanishing or your character dying early on. Just remember how fun it is to go back to square one. See the joy in it.
I never actually asked you how you create characters.
Oh, well, to be fair, I think I touched on it in terms of I try to go in a different direction than I have before. So that is one starting point. So I think I write with how I've been doing it recently, I actually kind of have like a no-no list, because I find that, and I'm sure everyone will find, you have tendencies, and I have tendencies towards certain story beats.
Dramatic.
Yeah.
We love the drama. I want to be a sad girl. I'm in my Lana core where I'm when I'm playing D&D. If I'm not crying at the table, I'm not playing.
If Summertime Sadness isn't playing in the background, then Mitch doesn't want it. I have tendencies towards daddy issues. That's the thing that's come up a few times. Yeah, and multiple characters. I love my father, actually. We have a great relationship.
I think he's probably listening right now. So.
I mean, hey, Dad.
Hey.
If anything, it's just for me to experience having daddy issues because I can't relate. But that's one that I tend to veer towards. I also tend to veer towards kind of, like you say, specific vibes. Sometimes I want to play like tieflings. Cool
Let's
tieflings.
Be real.
Cool tieflings. But also, like, I tend to play quite laid back characters and not really outgoing. So I wrote a bit of a list this time where I was like, no daddy issues. We're not being quiet. We're not being like orphaned and sad all the time. We're going like happy backstory, but interesting reason to adventure. And that for me was a starting point. And from there, it was just a case of honestly reading through races, reading through classes, and just being like, what's jumping out to me right now? And I think I didn't make the connection till a little while later, but this ranger really jumped out to me. And then I realized I was watching a TV show about a guy who's essentially a bounty hunter, completely modern day TV show. But I made that connection later on. And I think that's why I went, oh, that's interesting. What if it was a character that like is really good at tracking and finds people? The show's called Tracker, by the way. Shock. And so, yeah, just taking inspiration from what I'm loving at the moment with a bit of what I've always loved.
I love that.
It's nice and simple. I think we have a very similar emotional approach to it, though.
Yeah. Did I mention that those are the things that I mechanical versus emotional?
Yeah, I think you did.
I think I put a name to it. That's what I believe anyway. That there's those two ways of going about it. Really, when you really boil it down.
Yeah, if you were to do it as a coin toss. Speaking of which, something we wanted to talk about, something we mentioned at the beginning is, once you've got this starting point, once you've gotten past all of those mistakes, you've not made any of those mistakes, and you are super happy with this concept, you then obviously get into numbers. It goes straight from like class and race and all these fantastical elements to like number 15. And I think it's so easy to separate the two and go, here's the backstory, here's the vibe, here's my dexterity, I guess. But for me, trying to add story into those numbers is so important. It can also really help you to just bring more life to that character, because if you're really focused on what your stats are, I find that it doesn't make your character feel like a human being anymore, because you're just thinking about
dump stats.
You need dump stats.
You need them.
Absolutely. And I think the logic of D&D is beautiful because it actually works really well alongside real life. You've got things you're good at, things you're not good at. But I think we forget that the entire point of the numbers is to provide some realism. And we spend a lot of time thinking about, min-maxing, and nothing against min-maxing, but
I'm a min-maxer, and I will admit
Mitch-
it every time.
Mitch is a chronic min-maxer as well. Looks at my character sheets and goes, "Oh, what is that?" Because I have not optimized.
And mine is. But that's what happens, and I'll be the strongest one at the
No, this is true.
battlefield.
But also, this is what I mean. You do that because you enjoy that, which is completely valid. And then you find interesting reasons for your dump stats and interesting reasons for your strength.
As do you.
Thank you. Oh my god.
Do we build characters similarly?
Maybe. Maybe that's why we're friends. And I think you can make any mechanic, right now I'm talking about ability scores, but you can make any mechanic work for the story. Some that I am very bad at skimming over, not even mechanics, but obviously just things you meant to do at the beginning, is bonds, flaws, and
ideals.
Thank you. Can you tell? I never fill them out.
I think there's lots in those character sheets that you don't really need.
Yeah.
That's a hot take, but probably not that hot, to be honest. I don't usually feel there's in either. I think that there's ways that you can use them and kind of build your character backwards using them. So for example, I think if you took the bond, my loyalty is unwavering, you could always sort of create your character's personality, or at least base around that, just for fun, let's say. You might want to be better at history and maybe put your insight down.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then maybe that's part of your character's backstory now. Maybe when you think about it, maybe that applies to the village or town that they're from. Maybe the people that they have grown up with value patriotism. Maybe that's a core tenet for them.
I love that.
Yeah, and then you can kind of work backwards from there. You can take really minor bits of your backstory and make them more key players, I think.
Yeah, and that's a completely original idea right there. And then that's just one thing. You've just used, kind of ideals there. Immediately.
I'm sorry.
No, go for it. I'm just saying that's crazy to me that you've done all of that with just that one mechanic. That just shows that, like you say, you can take anything on the page and create a backstory off of that without even thinking about the rest.
And you can choose a whole heap of them as well. Characters are complex, just like humans and orcs and goblins. We're not racist here.
No, all humanoids, all creatures.
Yeah.
They're not all humanoid. God.
No. But also I think that if you find yourself min-maxing like I do, sometimes I like to take a stat that I myself have a high score in. I think that I have pretty good insight as a person.
Yeah.
And make that your character's flaw. My last character, her insight was rubbish.
So bad.
And my dice were working overtime to try and give me some some information there. But they just can't when I sabotaged her like that, and it played into her backstory so well because her perception of reality was not what other people's was, because she just didn't get the verbal cues. She didn't understand social motivations. That's creative. That's clever, if I say so myself.
No,
and
really
that's
interesting.
a good way to kind of handicap your character as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with...
She was so powerful in every other way.
She was so powerful in every other way, and she had these massive jugs. She just, honestly, just everything was working out for this.
I only play hot girls.
She only plays hot girls, and another reason for the name of the show, I'd say. Yeah, I think that's such a good point. It's crazy, isn't it? Because when people talk about dump stats, they're like, that's your dump stat. And then they kind of say it like, you don't ever have to think about that again.
It's always intelligence, let's
it's
be
always,
real.
Yeah,
Unless you're a wizard.
Which is fine. But I think turning that into a roleplay moment or multiple roleplay moments is so cool. Like, for a lot of, classes, you don't need that strength because you've got your dexterity. But is that a point of contention for you? What if you're a Goliath? What if, maybe you were kicked out of your tribe because you weren't strong enough, but you built onto your dexterity and now you're trying to prove a point? Character.
I love that.
Thanks. I was genuinely
off the top of the
dome. Someone write that down. I need to play that next. So yeah, I think you can take anything. You can take a feat. I very nearly made a character entirely based on the chef feat. I can't lie.
Oh my god.
Because
okay, tell me about them.
Well, because
cook them up for me.
Oh, she's funny.
She's funny.
I saw the chef feat. I thought it was so fun. It is actually really cool. If you want to look into it, it has a lot of benefits.
I don't think I've ever used it.
I don't think I've ever seen anyone use it. And I thought honestly it sounded like a joke feat, and then I read it and was like, oh, it's actually really handy. I actually love the realism as well of cooking in D&D. This idea of like, what do I actually have in my bag to eat? What are we actually doing around this campfire?
It's usually bat guano.
Yeah, literally, it's usually just nuts. And I think I thought that'd be cool. Maybe I could like role play, you know, what this person makes, and it really started to veer towards cleric pretty quickly.
I do feel that chef always ends up being a cleric thing.
Exactly. But to be fair, that feels a little bit stereotypical. It's like I cook, I feed, I heal, but
The
it's
helpers.
yeah, literally. But it started to like you know, add some depth to it that this person's talent was food. And I was like, that's so interesting. That's not something that comes up in any class and any subclass and any race. So I think a feat is another really cool starting point. So feats are such a thing that people get really cagey about in terms of like, you have to take that one. You have to take Sentinel. You have to take Sharpshooter. You have to. No, you don't. Do what you want. You know, like, you're not going to. I swear, unless your DM's really, really cruel, the reason for your untimely death is not going to be because you didn't take Sharpshooter. It's going to be because you're an idiot. Which is fine. You know, and I just think, do what you want. I think so many times people are like, well, obviously you need to take that spell. It's like, you know, when is it Warlocks don't take Eldritch Blast and all of a sudden everyone's screaming, and I'm like, they probably had a good reason. Write your reason down. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. And if you're the type of player or type of DM to judge these things at the table, stop that, because that's what stops people playing this game.
Absolutely. And you don't know how that feat plays into someone's backstory.
Exactly. They probably have a good reason for it, rather than like, you know, reading each other's character sheets and starting to point fingers. I think wait to see how that comes up. And sometimes it's a new player or a veteran player who doesn't know what they're doing. Me. Sometimes it's just a choice I've
The
made.
amount of times I've had to remind her about sneak attack.
Honestly, it's a joke. Uncanny dodge? Never heard of it.
Don't know her.
Don't know her. I don't know her. I think, you know, it can be, I get quite self-conscious about that, about forgetting about things, or, you know, choosing something that's a little bit against the type or against the class. But usually it's because it's appealed to me in a narrative sense. I've seen Chef and gone, how can I make some interesting scenes out of that? How can I roleplay that in an interesting way? And for me, that's the joy. So if someone's like, why did you pick that feat? It's going to make me sad. So don't do that to me.
Don't come for her. She's allowed joy.
Thank you. But yeah, that's how I think we could honestly go through every single thing on a character sheet and backwards engineer a character out of it. But I think we've made our point.
I think so as well. And I think that I'd like to talk about whether you're creating a protagonist, not antagonist, or you're creating, not a protagonist. You're creating a hero or a sidekick.
I think hero and protagonist are interchangeable.
Yeah, I suppose so, but I don't want to repeat the word.
What do you mean by hero or sidekick?
I think a lot of people go into D&D and it's an escape, right? So you create this character.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have a little bit of a main character vibe, and that's fine. It's hard on a DM, and it's hard to have, you know, 4 to 5 or 4 to 7 even main characters at a table, or with a rich backstory that you need to include into the campaign.
Yeah.
So I think when creating a character in a new campaign, it's always a nice idea to consider whether you want to have a main character or if you want to have a sidekick. Maybe your backstory is not as integral to the plot.
Yeah.
Maybe you like to sit back and watch other people roleplay. I know that I can watch Minty roleplay all day, and I'm just sitting there with little love heart eyes. And I think it can be nice as well if you're a more experienced player to be sitting there and have a more laid back, quiet character that pushes the newbies into the plot.
So true. Yeah. That's kind of what we were touching on earlier when, you know, we were talking about considering who you're at the table with. If you've been doing this a long time, take that joy in being the helper, being the kind of the mentor there. But also I think something that is important is probably DM transparency in terms of letting you know if your backstory is going to be a bit more light touch. If they've read it and like you were saying earlier, they've gone, I don't really know how to work this in, or this is definitely going to come up, but it's not going to be for a while. Say that at the beginning, because then that player has a chance to go, oh, actually, I want to be a bit more involved. Or, and I've seen players do this very, very nobly, go, yeah, that's absolutely fine with me.
Yeah, and for me, I don't always like to be the center of attention. Role-playing a lot actually makes me quite nervous, makes me anxious that I'm taking away the spotlight for other people. So sometimes when I've been thrust into the spotlight like that, I often, my next character is going to be right out of the plot because I do not want to be put in that same position. I don't like to be seen taking up too much time.
Yeah.
with what my character's got to say. I always end up feeling very guilty. So sometimes a sidekick is what I might like to play, and then the next time I want to create a hero.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It's doing what you can as a player and using your player agency to affect your experience, and then letting the DM pick up from there. Because I think your feelings on that might change, and there will be people who start off really nervous who then maybe later on start to want to get in, but it's not the right time. Those are the cues that the DM should be picking up on. So that's you as a player can maybe encourage those conversations and maybe, turn around to that player and be like, hey, what do you think about this situation? Like you've got some agency there, but it's give and take, and that's where your DM will hopefully jump in and go, right, let's bring that story point forward a bit because this person's clearly a bit frustrated and this person who's in the spotlight is clearly not having a great time. Like that's where they can hopefully shift things around for you.
I see a lot of people asking for advice on how to include the quiet players into the role play,
Yeah.
how to get them motivated or more engaged with the story. Maybe they don't want to be. Maybe they're enraptured by what is going on. Maybe they love seeing you do voices and they're just there for the vibes.
Yeah.
They don't need to be.
Ask them the question maybe before you're like,
Yeah.
now it's your turn. Here's your
Doesn't
mother.
automatically mean that they aren't engaged or that they don't listen or
Yeah,
they're not
cool.
taking notes. They don't like the story.
Yeah, completely.
And if in doubt, put a little questionnaire together and see if there are aspects of the campaign that you could change or adjust to suit them better. Odds are they probably are having a ton of fun and they just are there to watch a little bit more than the others.
And you're thinking about it too much when you go to bed at night.
I know I do. I've experienced a lot of anxiety about games and making sure that players are having fun. But they usually are, and it's all in your head. It's easy to look around and see everyone's faces and think, oh my God, like, are they enjoying this? Are they having fun? They are. They're probably thinking like, how many arrows did I shoot? Was it 5? Am I keeping track of that? Do I say anything out loud? Will the DM make me go and buy some more?
Yeah, you don't know what's going through their heads. I'm a big fan of a questionnaire.
Oh, okay.
No, I mean in terms of a
I
DM
thought you meant
setting.
it was the question segment.
Oh, I mean we're close, but no, in terms of that little, even if it or even if it's just sending them a message and saying like, hey, how are you feeling recently? Like, do you have any feedback for me? I think so often we probably forget, especially when you've been maybe doing it for a few months. You might feel a bit awkward asking that question, but it's so important because your player might actually turn around to you and say, actually, I'm not really vibing this character anymore. Any ideas on what I could do? Just giving each other the opportunity to say something. I think it's hard for people to come out of the blue with stuff like that. So initiate.
Absolutely. And I think as the DM, you are the referee and you're kind of corralling everyone.
Yeah.
So it kind of rests on you to check in as well, unfortunately.
Bless DMs.
Yeah, you've got many hats, but it's the role you've chosen.
It's the role you've chosen. Welcome to the wonderful world of D&D, the weirdest hobby of all time.
It's very strange.
It's very, very strange. We're literally talking about performing in front of people for 4 hours and trying not to be anxious about that. That's crazy.
I know, especially for those who do have social anxiety. But I think it's a great tool.
Yeah, that is true. That is very true.
I feel like it's time for a random question encounter, which is what we call this segment.
Yes.
But before then, we're just going to take a quick break.
And then we'll be back and we'll be asking some, quick fire questions that we've kind of had prepared for each other. So stay tuned.
Bye. Welcome to the random questions encounter segment of our show.
Yes.
Would you like to roll first?
I will roll first. I'm scared to touch your dice.
I will allow it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that your consent?
Yeah,
Good.
This is my consent. You can touch my dice. I'll probably salt it later.
For the record, I once watched somebody touch Mitch's dice at the table because they were like, oh, that's cool. And this is how you know someone's crazy about their dice. The entire table audibly gasped. Like Jenny went, like a death in a film, honestly.
Hey, I've got performers, okay? My dice know what I expect of them. I have them rolled face up to what I expect them to roll. They know what
top number.
Yeah, they know what they're supposed to be doing.
Oh my god, this is on an
and it's
8.
It's on an 8 right now. This D8 is sitting on the 8.
Makes me feel no. I can't get this roll wrong, and I feel like I will.
But I will put it out there. I will be upset if you roll higher than I do on my dice.
Okay, well we'll keep track. We'll keep track.
It's a 6.
It's a 6. Question 6. Oh, lovely. I think I touched on this a little bit. When was the last time a character or writing inspired you?
Great question. The last time I created a character that I was very, very excited about, it was a strange build. It was a paladin bard, and she was a dancer. I had her as a reborn, and it was because I was watching a Bollywood horror film, and I was I was entranced by it. I thought this character, I need to make her. She won't work, but I need to make her, and I've yet to implement her into an actual campaign or a one-shot, but she's sitting there waiting to be used, and I'm pretty excited about it. But
I love that. Also, the fact that you've never used this character, but
she's
still
special.
Yeah, she's ready, waiting in the wings.
Yeah.
That's nice.
How about you?
I suppose I talked a little bit about the ranger. I think, to be honest, I get inspired by aesthetics a lot. And actually, this isn't even a character, but when I was telling a friend at work, who will know who they are, when I was telling a friend at work that I was making this new D&D character, I was like, I kind of want like a floral outdoor vibe. This colleague turned around to me and said, I have a RuPaul's Drag Race runway to show you, which you wouldn't usually put the two and two together. So honestly was the most helpful thing.
I think I know who that is of your colleagues.
You do know who that is. And showed me this runway, and the whole thing was like a floral theme and all of these incredible fae-like looks. And I was kind of umming and ahhing with playing a Fae Wanderer, and that was kind of what solidified it for me. I was like, yeah, I'm going to go with like some kind of Fae themed character that has all these.
That's so cool.
It was honestly really fun. So it wasn't even a character, it was just visuals from a TV show.
It was a vibe.
It was a vibe. That was all I needed. And that got the ball rolling. And I named my character's father after said colleague. So that's my little...
I cannot wait until that comes up.
It will come up. That's my little homage to them. Write love stories into your backstories.
Oh,
do you want to roll the
write them for your friends.
Yeah.
Okay, I will. Better be an 8.
You better roll a 7 or an 8.
It's a 5. Betrayed. Okay, your favorite source of inspiration, my darling.
Favorite source of inspiration. I am going to touch on something here with a big asterisk.
I already know what it is.
Yeah. I'm going to say Pinterest. Pinterest is new to me relatively.
We love it though.
Oh, we love it so much. We love it so much. I didn't realize how good it was. I think people used to use it for like home inspo and like haircuts, sure. And I was like, surely this will not be good for D&D. And then I toyed around with it, and I've used it ever since. And I used it at the time to flesh out the look of a character I'd already created. But then when I had to create a new one, honestly just typing in like fantasy female D&D character and then just seeing all of the very non-credited artwork, by the way, like I
credit your artists,
please forgive me. I've honestly stolen so many things and been like, yeah, that's my character, and I don't even know who made it. But yeah, I love Pinterest so much. The reason I say big asterisk is we're so passionate about Pinterest, this is definitely going to come up again. So if you're interested in how we've used Pinterest to honestly change our entire game, we're going to talk about it, don't worry.
I had to stop myself because I was nearly going to start talking about how exactly we did that, which is not relevant. I love Pinterest so much. And I think it changed how I play D&D as well. And as a romantic, seeing those images, like those characters come to life. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So that is my biggest source, I think, because I use it for that like initial inspiration, but then as the story progresses, I'll use it to search for images that represent what's happening in the story and build on it that way. So we love Pinterest. If Pinterest want to sponsor us, I don't think they sponsor things like this, but maybe we could be the first. That'd be great. My turn. Let's see what we get. It's an 8.
This dice is...
I'm rolling pretty well.
In need of a salt bath, I think.
We also only have 7 questions, so let's take number 7. The question simply says, double ups at the table.
Love.
End of question. Let me roll again.
Full stop.
By double ups at the table, we mean
4 rogues.
4 rogues.
Bless that party.
Yeah, no, let's not do 4 rogues. 4 rogues, 0 parent.
2 paladins, 3 warlocks. I'm a fan. What a beautiful way of exploring different subclasses, of comparing
so true
the builds that you have. You know, if you've got 2 clerics, maybe you have different spells, well, you will have different spells, but maybe you have different prayers or different arcane focuses.
Ooh, yeah.
Maybe you have different gods. Maybe you have the same god, but they have a different agenda for both of you. That is very interesting.
Maybe you're being pit against each other.
Absolutely.
I love that. Yeah, not against it either. I think the game is so complex, and even in our last segment, we were just talking about how you can use any single mechanic to differentiate your character. So you could have very, very similar characters, but if they have very different bonds, different character, different person. There are, 8 billion people on the planet? I don't know what the number is now. Keeps going up. And I'm convinced that there will be 100,000 people who are very similar to me, have the same job, have the same interests.
We've all got doppelgangers.
Yeah, it doesn't mean we're the same person, I hope. So yeah, I think I agree with you. It can be a really fun opportunity to then explore what makes them different, what makes them similar. Are they friends? Are they not?
Yeah, what are the role play opportunities? What's the party tension?
Love that.
All right, time for me to roll.
Go for it. We're being so concise.
I'll go for the one down then.
Uh-huh.
Did I already answer that one? Yes, I'll re-roll.
Oh, yeah. We're only rolling high today.
Ooh. Thoughts on alignment.
Thoughts on alignment. What are my thoughts on alignment? I know that you have a lot to say on this.
I have so many thoughts on alignment.
So I'll be brief because I don't think about alignment very much. That's my point. I don't think about alignment very much. I have toyed with it. I think it's not been a very big focus in the campaigns I've been a part of. So it also depends on your table, depends on your DM. For me, it was not crucial. I tried to be evil and I quickly realized I'm not very good at that. So for me, I have not held myself to it and I've not really thought about it beyond session 1. But what about you? Do you think it's useful?
Yes and no. I think that people are so complex. The idea of being good or bad or somewhere in between is a little bit limiting.
It's giving, are you a Gryffindor or a Slytherin?
Yeah. You can tell by the scarf they wear. I think what is more important is how your character conveys that morality. So whether you are chaotic and neutral. Oh, is it neutral or lawful? Neutral, sorry. Or lawful. Oh, there's 2 of them.
There's many.
There's lots of them. Whether you fit into one of those 3, I think that's more interesting. Whether your character has a very black and white code that's dependent on society's laws, society's rules, maybe their personal code or a societal one. I think that's very, very interesting. Whether your character is a little bit more free with the rules. Maybe they do appreciate society's laws or code, but they have a little bit of wriggle room. They see the shades of grey within that black and white. Or whether your character is chaotic and maybe they are spurred by fancies. They love a whim. I just think that's so much more interesting. That's all I have to say about that.
They're also good starting points. If you are stuck, again, if you're unsure what you want to build your character around, maybe start there. Is it, does the idea of being lawful jump out to you? Because I think, we think lawful and we go paladins. But could you be a lawful rogue? What does that look like?
Yeah.
How does that work? What backstory fits with that?
It's like Dexter. He's a very lawful serial killer.
That is so true.
He's got a moral code, and that's a very interesting story, I think.
Yeah. Drop your favorite TV characters in the comment sections, whatever you may be watching on, listening on, and we will apply a build to it.
Yeah.
We could do that for hours. I think we've spent a lot of time doing that. We've done it for very strange characters over time. But yeah, you that makes complete sense. Like, what is there a way you can find an interesting dichotomy there? You don't have to be classic lawful, classic chaotic. Like, what does a chaotic cleric look like, And
also, you can have a character that's evil in a party of people who are good or neutral, and I think that can work if you guys have aligned motivations or aligned goals.
Yeah.
Someone who's lawful evil might feel the same way about a certain topic that your party does, and so you actually find that you guys work really well together. It doesn't need to be so divisive.
No, it doesn't at all, and it doesn't need to be so black and white, as you said.
Your turn to roll.
Ooh, there's a song in there somewhere. It's another one. I'll give it another go.
Nice.
I love this one. Do you have a vision for later level picks when you are making your character? So subclass, or even like, I'm going to go for this spell. Like, do you think about that at the beginning?
I think I used to a lot.
Yeah.
But I think it can be a little frustrating or disappointing when when your level 1 character is not living up to the
The grandeur.
yeah, the grand hero that you have in mind, to think about, oh well, at level 3 I'm going to do this multi-class and I'll take this feat when they finally take 4th level in whatever multi-class option I've
That's
taken.
true.
That's really frustrating because then you've got to wait a long time.
Yes.
And then if you compare that to where you're currently set, level 1, it's like, well,
Yeah.
but 100 years before I get to that.
That is true. Also could be kind of limiting as well, because if you go in with this very specific idea of I'm definitely playing this subclass and I'm definitely going to hit this point, what if something happens in the story that would send you on a different trajectory, but you are being so stubborn to your original plan? I am pretty stubborn to those plans, so I think that's something I need to work on.
I don't think so. You were pretty open to a pact last campaign that we worked.
I was quite far in, though. I think it took some time for me to start to let go of the original idea for the character. So that's something that hopefully I can get better at over time, because I definitely pick subclass from the beginning. I think for me it helps me
even your later levels.
Yeah, sometimes I think it can help me to like reverse engineer my choices. So I start choosing. It's all for the sake of the story. I'm not doing it for like I'm picking that subclass because that's like the best one to min max. It's a case of how can I start to narratively explain how I'm going to get to this point in my story. But obviously, as I'm saying, that's a double-edged sword, where it could be really cool, where you start to have this really natural progression towards your subclass, whatever that may be. But it also could mean that you could miss out on a story opportunity to go in a different direction, which you are completely within your rights to do. Most of the time, if you're starting from 0, you've got 3 levels to do it. You've got ages, you've got months, to decide. So I think I can be a bit closed-minded there. And
I think that's where I'm fast and loose. If something, I mean, look at me, I picked from the deck,
so true.
and got my character vanished. If something is beckoning to me and it seems a little bit dangerous, I'm probably going to do it. And
I love that.
If a fiend came down and offered me a pact, I'm signing it in my blood.
No, you would be like, how sexy is that fiend?
Actually, that's true.
You'd be like, describe her to me. And then maybe I'll consider it. I love that. Is it Strahd? I love that about you, though. And I think I've learned from you to be like, that sounds fun, I'm going to do it. Because I'm quite a nervous decision maker, I think. And that is something that I've picked up from you.
Oh my gosh, that's so nice.
I know. We're actually friends. Oh my God. We actually just met yesterday. It's crazy. Is there another question?
I think so.
I think we might just have one left.
Oh, I think we've touched on this. Oh no, we've got 2 left actually.
Oh, lovely.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
What to do if your backstory no longer serves you?
Oh, be rid of anything that no longer serves you? I would say this relates a little bit to that threadbare backstory. So much easier to do if you didn't spend years coming up with it. But yeah, if you think the backstory is just no longer gonna come up, or if it does, it would be weird, give in to the fact that you're more invested in the now than the before. That's absolutely fine. I think we go into a D&D campaign and we forget that like the entire story happens at the table. You don't actually need a backstory. Someone's going to come for me for that, but you don't. You can just be like, this is the personality. This is maybe my alter ego. Let's go. Like you don't need anything else. So I think if it doesn't feel interesting anymore, or if you've seen an opportunity to change it quite drastically because it's not come up yet, have that conversation with your DM, obviously, but do it. Yeah. Who cares? Get rid. That's my opinion anyway. Do you have a different opinion?
No, I completely agree. I think that be ready at any time to lose something that's no longer serving you, be it friends or family.
Yeah, I was about to say I'm ready to end this friendship in the next 5 minutes.
Ow!
No, I'm joking.
Oh my God.
Depends on how you move. What you do.
Okay, fair. I'll behave.
No, I'm joking.
But what I was saying that, as a DM, it's a bit of a relief sometimes when your character comes to you and says, actually, that really annoying part of my backstory, I don't want it anymore.
Yeah, get rid.
You say, wonderful. That leaves so much room to explore the things that we all find really interesting. So yeah, I'm here for it. Get rid of it.
Yeah, get rid.
Chop it off. Lie about what happened.
Yeah.
We love a lie.
We love a lie. But also have that conversation with your DM, because it may be that something that you're like, I don't think this is going to come up and it's boring. They might actually have a master plan.
Absolutely.
So give them a warning and they might be able to subtly tell you, hey, I would maybe keep that in there.
I mean, look at Molly Mock.
Yeah.
He died.
Died.
His story was hugely part of the campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So it doesn't mean that, I suppose, if you say you're not interested in it, it doesn't mean the DM can't bring it up later. But just say something rather than going, oh yeah, by the way, I changed that when they've introduced your, half sister. That's a bad time. That's a bad time to say that you killed her off, I'd say. Amazing. Final
There's
question.
only one question, yeah.
What is our final question? Oh, I love this. Because this is something that I've been told off for many times by Mitch. Do you, when you bring a character to the table before session 1, do you keep it private or do you talk about your choices publicly with your fellow players? Obviously, your DM should know.
Yeah, my DM will know. I like to have it private. It's nice to hint at what I have.
Mhm.
I mean, you'll be able to see, you look at it and you're like, oh, they're a rogue and they're a Shadowkai, whatever. I love that because it's sort of a tease. You have some expectations going in, and then I can completely throw you off with the character I've created, which is completely zany. And it makes for a very interesting role play when you've got this character that no one knows anything about them.
Yeah.
And I'm deceiving you under the table with my character. But you know that I'm actually lying. There's nothing more fun than the meta of it all. So,
100%.
How about you?
I agree. It's very kind of you to ask when you know the answer.
Yeah, annoyingly, she's so secretive.
I love a secret. Half of it is because I'm doing what we've suggested, which is coming to the table with very little backstory. So don't start digging because I don't know. But yeah,
Well, you know your dad's name.
I know my dad's name. That's honesty about it at this point, if you quiz me on it. I think I love the secrecy of it, not because I'm trying to be annoying, but because for me, I also don't like to hear about other people's story. Like when people start saying, oh yeah, I've been thinking about this backstory and they start unloading it on me. Like you can't ever play that Bollywood character in front of me.
But you don't know anything about her backstory.
No, I don't really. But I think I start to get nervous because I'm like, no, I wanted to find that out, like in the game. And I think there's something so beautiful and so immersive about figuring out someone's subclass because you saw a spell that they cast and you were like, hold on a second. And obviously you start to make those connections as a player, but this is a 50-50 game. Half of your brain is being a player and half of your brain is being a character. And it works in both ways. As a player, it's so fun, like you say, when somebody surprises you and you're like, oh, you're not what I expected. And then as a character, there's your roleplay moment. Like, be surprised or be, let the tension take over if you're like, what the hell? I didn't expect that. What moments does that bring out of you? And I think if you come to the table with, I know exactly what this person's playing and I know every spell they've picked because they've taught me through it, you're a little bit less likely to take that opportunity at the table to have a genuine reaction.
Well said.
Thank you. I studied English. I don't think it comes across all the time, but sometimes
I think it does.
Thank you. Sometimes I have my moments. That's all of our questions.
That's all of them. And I think we have probably so much more to talk about this on this topic,
so
but
much more.
My camera only has so much film.
Yeah, we could just keep going. But that's okay because this is episode 1 of hopefully many. And this has been a lot of fun. Let's keep doing it.
So much fun. We have a lot of episodes pre-planned, but of course we're always willing to change them if you guys want to hear something in particular.
Yeah, I mean, follow us on socials. You can leave comments on YouTube and Spotify, which is also where you can find us. So if you're listening or watching on one, switch to the other. And yeah, we want to hear from the people. Speaking of the people, thank you so much to everybody who has followed us so far, who has reached out, who has supported us even before we had an episode going. This community is special.
So wholesome.
Yeah, and that is why we're doing this as well, because we feel so passionately about this game, about the people who play it, about the force of good that it can be. We're just twatting around, in this podcast, but really there's a real heart to this, and we're so excited to do more, talk about more.
Exactly. So if you liked what we had to say, like, follow, subscribe. We're very active on our socials.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you would like to talk to us, we will be checking our DMs. We're very regular people and we love to chat. We love to yap. So if you want,
yappers.
Yeah, bona fide yappers. If you want to reach out, send us a DM. It's the quickest way to reach us. And yeah, I guess we'll see you in the next episode.
Yeah. Keep rolling, baby.
Bye.
Bye.